Are we drifting towards fuel rationing? Are we watching a UK-style energy panic unfold on our own shores? Amidst the chaos, the official story keeps changing. First, they tell us fuel supply is fine, no need to worry. Then, days later, we're told to conserve fuel. The Treasurer Jim Chalmers goes on record saying an excise cut is not being considered. A week later, they cut it in half. So, in the middle of all this confusion, they've offered one simple answer: a cut to the fuel excise. But this is where you need to pay very close attention, because the real question isn't whether this cut will save you a few dollars at the pump next week. The real question is this answer actually the first part of a much bigger, more expensive trap? Let's break down what they're not telling you. First, the entire economic logic is backwards. I know this isn't what we want to hear, but it's critical you understand this. Economists have pointed out that by making fuel cheaper, the government is signaling that it's okay to consume more, projecting a demand increase of up to 2%. Think about this for a second. It's like trying to fix a water shortage by giving everyone a discount on bottled water. You're not creating more water, you're just encouraging people to empty the shelves faster, right when the supply is most vulnerable. Second, let's talk about the price tag they're not putting on the nightly news. This policy will blow a $2.55 billion hole in the national budget, with an extra $53 million lost from heavy vehicle charges, all for just 3 months of relief. That money doesn't just disappear. It's a debt that will be paid for by us, the taxpayers, one way or another down the track. Third, and this is what they hope you don't grasp, is that this won't meaningfully lower the cost of living. In a highly concentrated market like Australia's, costs simply get passed on. The ACCC's own reports show that just 2 companies, Coles and Woolworths, control about 2/3 of the supermarket sector. A business veteran once told me something that has always stuck. Companies don't pay tax. They might remit the tax, but all of that goes back into the end price the company charges you. So when you see a press conference with a politician promising a crackdown on petrol stations, understand that it's mostly theatre. The ACCC doesn't have the power to stop a company raising its prices just because it feels high. It's not illegal unless they can prove collusion. We've just seen how this relief is an economic illusion. So, what's the biggest government band-aid solution you can remember that ended up costing everyone more in the long run? Share your example in the comments below. But look, that a $2.5 billion hole in the budget, that's just the sticker price. That's the number they're willing to talk about. The real price you're about to pay is far more personal, and it's being quietly deducted from your family's wealth. In a way, they are counting on you not to connect. That quiet deduction from your family's wealth. It's your mortgage payment. That's the connection they hope you never make. Let me show you how it works. First, the government cuts the fuel tax. To pay for this, they essentially create a multi-billion-dollar hole in the budget. At the same time, this cheaper fuel encourages more spending, stimulating demand when supply is already tight. Second, this combination, a massive budget cost and artificially stimulated demand, is pure inflationary fuel. It forces the Reserve Bank to act. Now, the government will tell you this cut reduces inflation, and for a brief moment, on a spreadsheet, they're technically right, maybe shaving 0.5% off the headline number. But the RBA isn't fooled by headline tricks. Their own modelling shows this kind of policy forces them to tighten monetary policy more aggressively to fight the real and underlying inflation it creates. And here's the final step, the one that hits your kitchen table. The RBA's aggressive action means higher interest rates, and higher interest rates mean your mortgage payments go up. Think about this for a second. You saved maybe, $20 filling up your car? Fantastic. But that interest rate hike just added $300 to your monthly mortgage repayment. You've been played. The small, visible saving at the pump is a distraction for the much larger, hidden tax on your home. But look, this policy is just the symptom. It's not the disease. So how did we get here? How did Australia become so fragile that a government has to resort to these damaging, short-term stunts? That wasn't an accident, and it's what we need to unpack next, right? That political stunt with the fuel tax is a band-aid on a bullet hole. It's time we talked about the bullet hole. Because this crisis wasn't an accident. It was manufactured piece by piece over decades. And let's be brutally clear. This is a bipartisan failure. This isn't about blaming the current government or the last one. Both sides of politics, Labour and Liberal, have systematically stripped Australia of its fuel self-sufficiency. They sold you a story about global markets while quietly dismantling our national resilience. Here's the reality they don't discuss in question time. First, our ability to make our own fuel has been gutted. We are now down to just 2 oil refineries in the entire country. Ampol's Lytton refinery in Brisbane and Viva Energy's in Geelong. Just 2. Think about that for a second. Because we can't refine it here, we have to import it. According to the government's own data from the DCCEEW, a record 79% of our refined petroleum was met by imports last year. Our total dependency on foreign fuel now exceeds 90%. We are utterly exposed. At the same time, we've stopped looking for our own resources. Investment in oil exploration right here in Australia has collapsed. It's dropped by 80% over the last decade. So we're not making it, and we're not even seriously looking for it anymore. We've been talking about budgets and refineries, but the real consequence of this failure isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in how many weeks the country could survive before everything grinds to a halt. So how many weeks? The answer is somewhere between 36 and 52 days. That's our national fuel reserve. Now think about this for a second. The International Energy Agency, the global authority, mandates its member countries hold a minimum of 90 days supply. We are a member country. So why are we accepting a standard that is, at best, half of what is considered safe? It's because over 90% of our refined fuel is imported. It sails to us through some of the most geopolitically volatile regions on the planet, including the South China Sea. The Lowy Institute confirms there is a high risk of our supply being cut off in a conflict scenario. Our jet fuel, for instance, comes from South Korea and China, regions now under serious export risk pressure. And guys, don't get sucked into thinking this is an abstract risk. This isn't a headline you can just scroll past. This means in a crisis, trucks stop delivering food to supermarkets. Ambulances can't run, and our entire way of life grinds to a complete halt in under 2 months. Even our Australian Defence Force is 98% dependent on these same imported liquid fuels to operate. And while this gaping hole in our national security sits wide open, our politicians have us celebrating a $20 saving at the pump. They are actively distracting us with the trivial discount while ignoring the fact our entire country could run out of fuel. This isn't just bad economics anymore. It is a catastrophic failure to protect our national survival. So, we have a band-aid on a bullet hole, and the wound threatens our very sovereignty. Where does that leave us? What is our mandate now that we can see through the spin? So what is our mandate? It's simple: to see the truth and to stop being played. Let's quickly recap the journey. We started with the confusing messages about fuel prices, a reality we all shared. But when we examined the government's supposed fix, the excise cut, we saw it was an economic trap, a short-term trick that ultimately drives up your mortgage repayments. Therefore, we uncovered the real, uncomfortable problem. Decades of bipartisan failure have created a structural weakness that is now a national security threat. This new understanding is your primary tool of defense. You can now recognize a superficial band-aid solution for what it is. So, if you believe understanding the truth is the first step to demanding change, hit that subscribe button. You're not just following a channel, you're joining a community that refuses to be spun. The next time a politician offers you a simple fix for a complex problem, you'll know to look for the hidden cost. That knowledge is your power.